We are going to be learning about paint techniques with tempera paint today, shading and blending techniques. So we need your paint palette that has black and white and red. You could do black, white, and blue. You need a larger paintbrush with a 6 or an 8 on the handle. You need a smaller paintbrush with a 1 or a 3 on the handle. You need your water container with really warm or hot water on both sides. You need 3 or 4 pieces of paper towel, and you need your paper with 2 circles. I just traced around the inside of a roll of tape twice to get the 2 circles, and we're going to be going from very flat 2-dimensional to this finished example of looking more 3-dimensional. So we go from just circle shapes to spheres, which is what circles are called when they're more 3D. So we're going to be doing the light coming from one direction, so we have a tint on one side, and then the opposite side will be the shade or the shadow side. All right, so for the first technique will be the tapping technique. The second technique will be the dragging technique. So what you do first, clean dry brush, dip it in your blue or red paint, in this case red paint. You have the wood handle, the metal ferrule, and the little hairs called the bristles. You want to hang on to the metal part of the brush when you paint. You can control it much better that way. So plenty of paint filling in the first circle. You want to get it very thick. Thick paint is called opaque paint. So we're going to get painted in here very thick, very opaque. That means it's not the opposite of opaque, which is transparent paint. This technique and the next one I'm going to do only work while the paint is wet. Paint does dry very quickly. This tempera paint we're using. So we want to make sure that we work while it's wet. So the thicker you get this on here, the better it's going to work and stay wet longer. So very thick paint like this. Spread it out a little bit with the brush. Okay, you want to clean your brush off and then dry it. Just to demonstrate way you need to dry your brush, I'll just go from the water container directly to a paper towel. You can see we add this much water into your paint if I would just go to get the next color. So it's very important you dry it off really well. All the paint off the brush. Some of it sticks to the metal ferrule. All the paint, all the water out. So that is a lot of water. That's why it's very important to not only wash off your brush, but to dry it. So we're going to just pretend the light is coming this way. It's called implied light because you don't actually see the light bulb or the sun or whatever is causing the light. So with a large brush, we're going to put some white. It's going to go ahead and apply it on the top edge, like where the light is coming from. This is going to be the tint side. And it's tint, T-I-N-T, not T-E-N-T. So T-I-N-T for tint. Clean the brush off. Okay, opposite side, I'm going to use a smaller brush for the black. Black's a very dark, dominant color. It's very easy to use too much black. Very, a little bit difficult to use too much white. So I've got a lot of white, a little bit of black. So basically I just kind of layered the paint on like that. So basically I overlap the colors like this. Now I'm going to blend them like this, like how you interlock your fingers, going to blend them like that. So this can all be done with the larger brush. So I'm going to go ahead and I washed it out, so I'm going to finish drying it off. So what I'm going to do, this is the tapping technique. So I'm going to take the brush and I'm going to tap in the white here. It's going to make a tint of red. In this case, it's going to be a light red, like a pink color. So I went ahead and I tapped that in like that, but it's still kind of overlapped. You can kind of still see it's not blended in or mixed as well as it could. So I'm going to go ahead and finish tapping this in. Then I'm going to go towards the middle until it just kind of all blends and kind of fades together like that. So you tap it in, and then you go towards the middle. Okay, so it's tapped in, and then you go towards the middle. So it's been tapped in like this on the edge, like that, and I just go towards the middle until it all just kind of fades and blends in. So it's going to be lighter going to darker. Okay, so when it dries, it will be lighter going to darker like that. Okay. All right, clean out my brush. I'm going to dry it off. Then I'm going to do the same with the black. Okay, I'm going to tap this in to make a very dark red, kind of like a maroon color, back and forth a few times like that. Okay, still kind of overlap like this. So now I'm going to take where I tap this in, and I'm going to start going towards the middle until it all just kind of blends and kind of fades together like that. All right, because if you just do the line, it's still going to be overlap looking. So you do the line, and then you go towards the middle, and so that is tapped in to blend in like that. See how that looks. And when it dries, it will be much lighter and look like this way. But the red is darker when it's wet. So it'll look like that. So this is the tap technique. All right, so the next one, and we don't need to label these because these are going to look a lot different. So this is more of a texture. This would work good for grass or for fur or something like that. Kind of gives a texture of what the material would actually look like or feel like if it was actually there. All right, next one starts the same way. This is going to be the dragging technique. It's going to look smoother. This one was more rough technique. This one's smoother. So it starts out the same way. Okay, clean, dry brush. Okay, plenty of red, or you could do blue paint. Red or blue. Again, really thick paint. And remember, if you get it spread too thin or you get it too watery, it's going to be transparent. It's not going to work very well. It's going to dry out really quick. So again, very thick, opaque paint. Hang on to some part of the metal of the brush. If you hang on to the wood handle, you're going to get really shaky like that. So hang on to part of the metal of the brush. So going around. It's better to turn the paper a different way than it is your hand or the brush a weird way. It's really easy to make a mistake if you're holding the brush incorrectly or holding it at a very strange angle in your hand. You just kind of hold it like a pencil and hang on to the metal part of the brush. So kind of going around like this. Again, spread the paint out. Because when you kind of do that along the edge, it kind of gets spread out kind of thin. All right, so very thick, opaque paint. Clean the brush out. Remember, dry it off really well. If you don't have watery paint, make sure you get all the extra red out of the brush in this case, or you could be using the blue. Okay, starts off the same way. So clean, dry brush, a little bit of white. I'm going to put it right on. We're just going to pretend that the implied light's still coming from the same direction, just upper left. So plenty of white paint along the top. Kind of applying it on the top like that. So plenty of white. Kind of layering it on. Clean the brush off. I'm going to go ahead and dry it because I'll need the brush here again in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to use the small brush, which I had cleaned off, but now I need to go ahead and dry the brush off. Apply just a little bit of black. Not very much. So just a little bit of black. You see how much white I have compared to the black. A lot of white, teeny bit of black. Clean the brush off. I'm going to go ahead and dry it this time. All right, and then this one. You need a clean, dry paper towel. Okay. And this one, what I'm going to do is hang on the brush. This is the dragging technique. So I'm going to go to the edge, drag the brush to the middle, and then I'm going to wipe off the brush on a paper towel. So you go to the edge, drag it to the middle, and you wipe it off. To the edge, drag it to the middle. And why I wipe it off is because what I'm doing is I'm getting all that red paint. And if I put the brush back up here, I'm putting the red paint back up here. And when I drag it down, it's all going to look the same. So if yours ends up looking all the same, you're either forgetting to wipe your brush off. Okay, that's usually what causes the problem, like that, is you're forgetting to wipe the brush off, or you're just kind of going back and forth like that, and then you wipe it off, but you only want to drag it to the middle, wipe it off, to the middle, wipe it off, to the middle, wipe it off. Okay, so then this time I'm not going to get the brush wet. I'm just going to clean it off really well on a paper towel. Get all the paint out of it. I'm going to do the same with the black. And I'm going to go to the edge, drag it to the middle, wipe off the brush. Edge, drag it to the middle, wipe off the brush. And do that, just like that. All right. So then we have the tint and the shade on that one. So what we have is the light coming down, and this is the tap technique to shade and blend. So we went from flat 2D to more of a three-dimensional sphere instead of just a 2D flat circle. And this one we drug the paint in, dragging it to the middle and wiping off your brush each time. And they don't really need to be labeled because they look totally different. Make sure you write your name on it, your period, and then this goes to the drying rack, which I'm going to do here in a little bit. Paint tray, you clean off with warm water and a sponge at the sink for your row, which I will do here in a little bit. Okay, the brushes, you simply make sure they're really clean in the water container. Make sure you have all the paint off of it. You don't have to dry them completely, just make sure the paint's on them, then they go back in the container. Water, this would be dumped in the sink, then you just put it back on where the water containers belong. Paper towels you have that are extra, okay, take those, wipe up any water or paint that's on your table. Make sure everything's cleaned off, and then you're all good to go. So I will be heading over to the sink to clean this off with warm water and a sponge, and then go ahead and dump the water container out. But that is how you shade and blend with tempera paint.